I want to talk now about a descriptor of an excellent teacher that is probably the most difficult for most of us. That is the idea of assessing children's development and learning of mathematics. Most of us daily watch children and we assess during our teaching time, but often we don't think about it as something that is focused or intentional. We say, oh, I understand what kids are doing, or we say, I assess by observing, but we're not focused on particular objectives, or we're not thinking about specific information that we're getting. So this particular one is one I work on a lot, and I think about what could I assess as I am teaching. I can assess certainly the procedures that they can follow, and the procedures and their fluency in working with pretend, for instance, like numbers. I can also assess their problem-solving strategies. I can also assess maybe their understanding of particular concepts. I can certainly look at their reasoning. But I think something that we often forget is their disposition and how flexible they are, or what they find interesting, or what is interesting not only to them but also to me that we could kind of work together and focus on. So there's a lot of things I could assess. And there's a lot of things I can assess while I'm teaching. And that's what I'd like to talk to you about in this section. The first tape that we're going to view is a tape that comes from an activity that I do late in pre-kindergarten or early in kindergarten. It's an activity that deals with number patterns. In this particular tape, we're going to look at number operations, and the children are working together as partners, and they're playing two teams against each other, if you will. Now, it's not as much a competition, and that's not what it's for, but their goal is to try to fill up their 10 frame. Now, the 10 frame is a very important visual reminder of number, and you're going to read a lot about it when you read The Young Child in Mathematics. But it's simply a grid that has one row of 5 on top of another row of 5. And these are holes or empty squares that the child must fill up. When all the tiles are filled up, they have made 10. Because of our base 10 system, that is a very important representation. So they know that if the top row is filled up, it's 5, and if the bottom row is filled up along with the top row, that's 10. This particular game of the videotape that you're going to see is one that they have just learned. In fact, they are just learning to play. It is a tape that simply shows me instructing them in a game and asking questions. It's a game that later on gets played all the time as they play games that will reinforce many of the math concepts I've taught. So, as you watch this, here's what I want you to look for. These are the questions. What could you assess regarding children's understanding in this video clip? I want you to look for specific things in that area. And the second one, how could this assessment guide your planning and decision making? One of the things you're going to find out as we look at assessment is I believe one of the main purposes of assessment is to help you know what to teach next and how to plan. So look at this tape to find that out. After you view this video clip, please pause the DVD so that you can respond to any reflections you may have about this video.
Okay, John will let you start, okay? Now watch what he rolls. Oh, good job. What number is that? Do you know? 2. 2. Would you put 2 cubes? One right there and one right there. Okay, that's very good. Now they've got 2. It's now your turn. So, Adrian, would you roll, please? 3. Okay. So would you put 3? And he's going to start right on the star. Good job. Whoever gets it done first. Okay. Well, so far they've got 1 more than you, but that doesn't mean it's going to last. All right, Joseph, your turn. 3. Wow. Go ahead and get 3.
Go ahead, go 3.
Get 3.
That's mine.
Oh, they can be yours. They're both everybody's. Okay, so 3. Does he have 3? You guys check. Does he have 3? Yeah. 1, 2, 3. 3. You guys remember what I just did with the board? How many is that without counting? It's 1 row, isn't it? How many is that? It's 5. Thank you, John. That's 5. Okay, it's your turn. Lainey,
make it.
Oh, 1. That's okay. Would you get 1? Let her get 1 from her block.
Lady won't win.
Okay, good. And she put it right there. Look, she's almost as far as you guys, isn't she? Look how close she's. What'd you say that was, John? How did you know that was 4? But you knew it without even counting, didn't you? Wow. You just need 1 more to be the same as them, right? If it's all filled up, how many is it? Well, if both rows are filled up, it's 10. You're right. Okay, John, it's your turn. Let's see. You got to start on the second row. Let's see how he does. 3. Oh, my goodness. Start over here.
Go, John. Go, John. Go,
yeah.
John. Go,
oh, look at now. Joseph's going to want just how many more to make him win? You just need 2 more. If you get 3, you can't play because that's too much. Oh, it's now your turn, Adrian. Go ahead. I bet you want a 3, don't you? But you got to roll it. You got a 3. So take 3. Finish this row. Oh my, no, put it like right there. Good. Ooh, look, how many would you like your partner to roll the next time?
6.
No, look. 1, 2, how many?
3.
Boy, wouldn't it be nice if Lainey could do that because she would win, wouldn't she?
Lainey picked a 3.
Okay, well, yeah.
I know you would win.
Yeah, okay. It is, let's see, it's Joseph's turn, isn't it? Okay, Joseph, we'd like you to get a 2, wouldn't you, John?
No.
Okay, ready? Toss it. You gotta throw it. You gotta throw it. You can't just put it down. Okay. 3. Oh, will 3 of them fit, Joseph? It's too much. Oh, well. Now it's Lainey's turn. All right, Lainey, he wants you to get a 3.
3.
You got a 3. Would you put 3? Let's see if it works. 1, 2, 3. Oh, my goodness. Oh, so you guys go, yes. And you guys go, oh, well. But we're going to play again. Do you want to play again?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Take a minute.
Let's start first with the first question. What could you assess regarding children's understanding in this video clip? Well, there are quite a few math objectives, number objectives that you could assess using this videotape. The first one that comes to mind is this idea of children subitizing for quantities. So for instance, when we rolled the die and they said they could put in 2, did they have to count out those 2, or could they just immediately take 2 objects and know that was 2? Or when they rolled the die that had 3 on it, 3 pips on it, could they look at it and just go, oh, that's 3, without having to count each one of those? Subitizing, as you know, if you've read The Young Child of Mathematics, is an important skill in number and operations. I was able to see, by playing this game with 4 children, I was able to see who could subitize and who could not. If you notice, there were several that could just look at that and know the number. A second thing I was able to really get at was the idea of the quantities that were represented in the 10 frame. As they added 2 and then they added another 3, who could say, oh, that's 5, because that filled up the top row? Or if they added 1 more to 5, did they know that was 6? Or 2 more, did they know that was 7? Again, if they could recognize the quantities, and especially using the 10 frame, would know what that was. The hardest question for them to get, and there was a couple of children that were able to do this partially, was the question of how many more. How many more is a difficult question, and I kept saying, how many more till you get to 10? How many more would you need to fill it up? As you could see, there were some children that could do that in this tape, and others who could not. Again, we were playing a game, and from the child's perspective, we were just playing the game. From my perspective, I could assess some of their mathematical skills from that. Well, let's look at the second question. How could this assessment guide your planning and decision making? Remember, I said this was the first time they played this game. There were lots of things I could make decisions on based on what they could do. First, children need to continue to play the game with teacher direction. One time introducing this game was not enough for them to be able to play this game by themselves. They needed to have those specific directions. One of the directions that I think are very important with the 10 frame is that they're able to fill up the top row first and then the second row. Why is that important? Well, it's important because we want them to see things in sets of 5 and 10. Because of our base 10 system, that is an important representation for them to see. So because that's important, I want to make sure they get that direction part correct. Another thing is that I could see that most children could subitize the quantities 1, 2, and 3. However, that doesn't mean they could subitize the quantities 4 and 5, which is something that I want them to be able to do. So next time I played this game, I would probably use that information to help me say that the next game we played, we might use a die that had 4 and 5 on it as well, or even 6. Finally, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that children needed more experience with the how many more questions. As you could tell, not many children could do that. That is a more difficult question, I know from my experience, as well as from this particular game introduction. Now, as I reflect on this tape, this one's a little hard for me to watch. It gets across the idea, but many times throughout this tape, I talked over the children, and it would have been so much better if I could have heard what they did. I was able to watch what they were doing and assessing, but if I had been a little quieter, I would have been able to really get what each child could do in this game. Unfortunately, I didn't do that. So this tape is hard for me to watch because I want to be an excellent teacher, but I also want to learn from my mistakes. The next time I played this game, and I don't have videotape to show you, but I was much quieter and I learned a lot more about the children from it. The activity Look, Make, and Fix is an activity that fits very, very well in the assessment category of an excellent teacher. This activity is described in the geometry chapter in Young Child and Mathematics, but it's an activity that I think of a lot when I think about assessing during teaching. This was an activity I didn't think was something that pre-kindergarten kids could do. I was wrong. They do it very well, and actually they really can use their spatial sense, and they get better at it the more they try. Here are the steps that you're going to see. First of all, children use shapes that they are very accustomed to. Tangram shapes are something that each of them have used a great deal, so they know what they look like. They've touched them, they felt them, they've done all kinds of puzzles and enjoyed working with them. What their job is they sit facing me. And this is the one time I have to tell you, you're going to see all the kids kind of in rows looking at me. The reason they're in rows is because they need the exact same perspective. They need to see exactly what I'm doing, all from looking face on it at me. They can't be in a circle like we would maybe normally do. So what I do is I simply show them a configuration of tangram blocks. I use magnetic ones, and I turn over the board and have them look at those shapes. While they are looking, they may not touch their shapes. They have to sit very still and they have to look. While they're sitting and looking, they may talk to their neighbor because their job is to remember what they see. The second step they do is something I called make. And I will turn over the board so they can't see it, and they must make what they saw. This requires them to visualize mentally what they saw and be able to then make it. Again, they're welcome to talk to their partner or talk to anyone around them as they make them, and I guarantee that you'll see that on the tape. The third and final point is called fix. I simply turn it back over, they look at it, and they fix it so it matches. While you're looking at this tape that you're going to see, remember this is the first time they've done this activity. Although they've used these blocks before, it's the very first time. And what I want you to notice are the following questions. First question, what could you assess regarding children's understanding in this video clip? What would you be able to assess just from watching them? Second point, How could this assessment guide your planning and decision making? How would you use what you see? After you view this video clip, please pause the DVD so that you can respond to any reflections you may have about this video. Look. You gotta put it in your head. Don't touch your shapes. No, 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 no. No touching shapes yet. This is still the look. Talk to your friend and talk to the person next to you and say, how are you going to remember this? How are you going to tell them? I do that 100 times. Tell them how you're going to remember it. And they ask, David. Okay, are you ready? Yeah. All right. Make it. Empty your shape. See if you can make it. You don't need all of your shapes for this. You may only need just a couple or 3 or 1. Remember what it looked like. Boy. You can help each other if you want to. You can talk to each other.
Look, I make it. I make it. I make it too.
Just tell the person next to you. Maybe they want to help.
Yeah. I make it.
Some of them look a little different. Not everybody's looks the same. Put the shapes you don't need back in the bag.
Look at mine.
Put the shapes you don't need back in the bag. I can tell this is one. Okay, we're going to fix in just a minute. I'm going to turn it around in just a minute. All right, you ready to look?
Yes.
Okay, you look, you made. Now, this step is fixed. That means you look at it and see if yours looks exactly like it. If it doesn't, you fix it. Make it look like, okay? All right, you ready? Here we go. Look at this one is bigger triangle, and this one is a smaller triangle. Did you do that one? Oh, yeah, here we go. This is a hard one, 5 pieces. Just look at it. Just look at it. Don't touch. Tell somebody next to you. How are you going to remember this, you guys? How are you going to remember? What are you going to do? I would never get that right. Oh, I heard somebody over here saying they're remembering it has lots of triangles. That's a good way to remember.
Thank you.
Look at the shapes. Look at the sizes of the triangles.
Awesome.
Okay, nobody's touching yet. You think you're ready?
Yes.
All right. Make.
Make me.
You don't need all your shapes. Let's see.
Blue or this? This is blue. I can use it as milk. I make it. I can make it already. I can make it.
Oh, boy, I used 5 shapes. I hope you've used 5 shapes.
It's
5 shapes. You had to make it just like I did. Do you remember what sizes, what they look like?
I made it. I make it. I made it. Look, I made it. Okay. What's the face right here? I make it. I make it. How do you?
Let's look at the first question. What could you assess about children's understanding based on this video clip? Well, I think there's quite a few things you could, but I think all of them fit under spatial visualization. Did you see how children selected the correct shapes? I think almost everyone was able to determine that the different pictures that I showed were made out of squares or triangles, and there was only 1 or 2 instances where the children selected the wrong shape. So they were able to remember what shapes were in the pictures. I think you probably also saw that most children could actually put the orientation of the shapes correct. Now, you have to have noticed that I used definite pictures to make, that I gave them to do. So one was what one child called a Christmas tree, and another was an arrow type picture. They were able to orient the shapes correctly to, in most cases, to put together to make what they saw. I think you also noticed that many children had difficulty with the size of the shape. They, for instance, on the Christmas tree where it was supposed to go from small to large, they had difficulty putting those in order. In fact, they mixed those up a lot. In fact, in most cases, I didn't see anybody use the right size of the shape. They used the right shape, they put it in the right orientation, but the size was difficult for them. Let's look at the second question. How could this assessment guide your planning and decision making? Oh, this one's easy. Because what I used from that information was, first of all, that children could do this activity. I thought this was something, spatial visualization was something very young children would have difficulty with. Because I remember I always had trouble with that. In reality, they were able to do this, and in fact, they enjoyed doing it. They loved putting something up in their head and putting it together. So I decided that in the future lessons, and of course I did many other lessons with this particular group, I would choose more shapes, and I would have them not only just use shapes, but I would make pictures that were not necessarily in a picture form. In other words, not pictures, but shapes that were not necessarily in a picture form. So what I did is, instead of making an arrow or a tree, I would put them just in different orientations to make puzzle-like figures. I then decided, after doing those, and the kids were able to do those, I would use maybe 3 or 4 shapes. I then decided to do other activities that really focused on size. So we looked at size of shapes in a very different way. We didn't just do the look, make, and fix activity with other sizes, but we used lots of different size activities where I would have children put things in sequence from smallest to largest and so on. So I used this particular activity to increase doing this type, but also to give me information about exactly what type of information I needed to use. As I reflect on this activity, one of the things I think about is do not shortchange young children. I so often will think about what children can do and sometimes not really investigate what they can do. And I find out amazing things when I expect much better. This is a game that I typically use to assess children's beginning understanding of number. In this particular tape, you're going to see 2 children who are playing a game with me, a game that, as I said, is called the snake game. The goal of the game is to move from one end of the snake board to the other end. But the way that children move is by guessing how many counters are in their neighbor's hand. They have to guess, and it's very much a guess, if they have 1, 2, or 3 counters in their hands. If they guess correctly, the person who guesses correctly gets to move that number of spaces. If they guess incorrectly, the child who is holding the seeds or the counters must move that number of spaces. They always move the number of spaces that are in their hand. So you're going to see this game, and the rules sound kind of hard when you just hear them, but as you watch them, you'll be able to see how they play the game. One of the things that's very important in this particular game is that I know up front what I want to assess. I'm looking for particular skills. So as you look at this game and me playing it with the 2 children that I play it with, I want you to specifically watch for what it is that I'm going to assess. And the second question is, how could this assessment guide my planning? I will tell you that this particular game is one that I play with children at the beginning of pre-K. So the 2 children that you're going to see are children who are early 4s, and I often will play it with a 3-year-old as well. After you view this video clip, please pause the DVD so that you can respond to any reflections you may have about this video.
Come up with. Okay, you ready? Okay, put out one hand. Don't show them, but put out one hand. Okay, keep it closed. Okay, Manuel, what do you think? Open your eyes. What do you think she has in her hand? One. Oh, two. Oh, no. So you get to move 2 more spaces, Zoe. Oh, this Zoe, she fools you every time. So move 2. 1, 2. Oh, my goodness. You gotta fool her this time. Here you go. She's a good guesser. Close your eyes, Zoe. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Ready? Oh, keep it closed. Keep it closed so she doesn't see. Okay, Zoe, open your eyes. What do you think? 2. Oh, no. Zoe, you're right again. So do 2 more. Oh, my goodness, this woman here, this girl.
2.
Oh, my goodness. I don't know how she's such a good guesser, do you? And then you also fool him, so go ahead, try it again. He hasn't even moved off the head yet, Zoe. I know, I don't know. She's just
in 0.
Well, you could try that. Okay, got some in one hand or whatever. Okay, then put your hand out.
It's going into 0.
Well, shh, don't tell. Okay, so put out a hand. Put out your hand. How many do you think are in here? 0. Well, you're right, but guess what? You only get to move 0. You can't move. Oh, no. So this time you guessed right, but you still can't move. He's still on the head. Oh, my goodness. Okay, well, Manuel, let's see if you can fool Zoe. She hasn't been able to be fooled yet. So think hard. Think about it. Close your eyes, Zoe. What a good guesser you are. Okay, you ready? Keep your hand closed. Okay, Zoe, open your eyes. What do you think?
3.
You think 3? Open your hand. 1. So you finally fooled her, and you get to move 1. So move your 1. Yay! It's about time, Zoe. Okay, all right. All right, now see if you can fool Manuel.
Well, let's talk about the first question. What is it that you could assess regarding children's understanding in this video clip? Well, I already told you that I use this at the very beginning of their pre-kindergarten, so they're very young learners. And what I'm able to see very easily on the board is being able to use one-to-one correspondence as they move along the board. I watch very carefully as if they get 3, for instance, are they able to count exactly 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3, and land on the final one that says 3. Are they able to use one-to-one correspondence is easily seen in this game. Another thing that I see, another thing that I'm able to assess is if they're able to subbatize with numbers 1, 2, or 3. Again, when the person put the counters in their hand, they were able to see 1, 2, 3, and they were able, when she showed him she had 3 in her hand, was the little boy able to say, ooh, that's 3? Or did he have to count 1, 2, 3? So it's an easy way to really see if a child can subbatize and what quantities they can use to do that. The third one's a little more interesting, I think, because every time I play this game with children, I love watching them play it. As you could see in this particular game, when a child, when the little girl wanted to really fool the little boy in the tape, she was able to she said, I'm going to put 0 in there. And I love watching their faces when they're playing this because it's like, oh, I'm going to fool you, I'm going to fool you. And they put this out, and then when the child will guess something else and she turns it over, she's so excited that she's fooled the boy or fooled the partner. And then she realizes, ooh, that means I get to move 0. I love watching their faces because children are not subtle. And it's so easy to assess if they get that concept of zero. In fact, later on, as they're playing this game, or if they do anything else, they'll say, it's zero, like that snake game thing, and I don't want zero when I roll. So it's a way of just me seeing if they actually get the understanding of what it is they're doing. The game is just fun for kids to play. As I look at this particular game, one thing I say is as it does help me guide my planning. So let's look at the second question. How could this assessment guide my planning and decision making? I could decide that they need to play this again with my direction, or it could be that they're able to play it by themselves. It's a good activity for them to continue to play because it really gets at that idea of counting 1 to 1, and it's a good way to practice subitizing. I also know that children, just looking at this particular tape, I could do a harder version of the game. And rather than just using 1, 2, or 3, I could make the decision that I'm going to use 4 counters or 5 counters. And a way that I do that often, instead of having them guess what number is, I will have them put some of the counters here and hide the others. But they will simply be able to show their partner how many are here, and then what they are really doing, rather than guessing how many are back here, they are simply knowing by part whole ideas. So it's a way to incorporate learning parts of 4 and 5 in a harder version. Now, from the tape that you saw, these children needed some more practice playing this particular game. But I was excited to be able to see that most of them, both of them in this case, could use 1-to-1 correspondence and were able to subitize quantities 1 and 2 at least, and really 3 many times. If I reflect upon this particular tape, I note that this was a way that I probably got very excited, and maybe more excited than I needed to be on this particular tape. I find that it's very, very hard for me not to react to children, and I get as excited as they do sometimes. But I was able to see the excitement in their voices as they learned to play this particular game, and it means simply that I would definitely use it again. You are now going to view a video clip that is from a 2nd grade class, and it's involving a concept that's very important. It's entitled Estimating Quantity. In 2nd grade, especially at the beginning of 2nd grade, they work very hard on place value, the idea of ones and tens and 100s and what those mean and what the place value themselves means and how do they write those kind of numbers. In this particular activity, you're going to see children going around at centers, and they go around with partners, looking at bags of materials, and their job is first to estimate how many are in the bag. Their estimation is not just a single number. It's an estimation that says less than 100, more than 100, and less than 200, or more than 200. That's an important idea because estimation involves a range of answers, not one specific number. And so the children will go around with their partners, I believe there are 10 bags, and they record what their estimation would be. Now, they are not allowed to touch the bags, and that's what you're going to see first. They're just going to do it simply by looking at the objects. After that is done, they go back and they work just with the partners work with just one set of objects, and they organize them in sets of 10. One of the things I want them to be able to do as a teacher is to be able to look at something organized by sets of 10 and be able to say, ooh, there's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 2 objects, or be able to see exactly how much it is just from a quick look. So then the children go back after they've organized their sets of objects. They then go to rotate again to all of the other 10, and they take one quick look, count them, and record exactly how many were in that bag. The next thing they have to do is probably the most important. They have to look at that exact number and see if they had identified the correct range of answers. In other words, they need to know if they have 142 objects, what range does that fall in? Is it more than 200? Is it between 100 and 200? Or is it less than 100? I find that that is often a very difficult task for them. I use this particular object, this particular lesson, as an assessment of whether they understood at least partially understood place value, especially sets of 10 and sets of 100. If they had an idea of how to record that number, so that, for instance, if it was 108, were they able to record it as 108, or did they record it as 100 for 100 and then stick an 8 at the end? And also I looked at their work product, their sheet, to see if they in fact could identify what range they used. So as you look at this activity, please look for the answers to a couple questions. I've already given you the clue on some of them. First of all, what could you assess regarding children's understanding in this video clip? And secondly, how could this assessment guide your planning and decision making? After you view this video clip, please pause the DVD so that you can respond to any reflections you may have about this video.
I think less. I think number 3. I think number 1 is on here. I think number 3 is like 2. Yeah, it's number 2. Wait, I mean, which one was number 100 or less? Because look, there's not that much. There's a few in there. There's not like I didn't look. Number 1 is 100. That's right. 101. That's more than those. The chips are like that.
Check when you're finished, guys, sit back down at your table.
Yeah,
And then make sure you have an answer for every one. We want to be able just to look and know how much
9, 10, 1, 2. What number are we doing?
You guys can stand.
7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 5. 2, 7. Are you sure, Sam?
Okay, you guys are going to have to do the same too. So this is so kind of thing like this.
It's like 40, 45, 50. Which one is a 50? Look. 56. What number 50, 66?
Okay, you guys. Okay, so you got this one. And change your answer. Okay, keep going. Did you guys get all of them? Good. So let's put you got all 10? The ones that aren't 10, keep them separate so we can look at them, okay? And so if this one isn't a 10, could you leave them out separate so we would know that, because otherwise somebody's going to count it as 10. Instead they would count as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, great. So how many is it all together? Did you see? 10, 20, 30.
40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90.
Okay, my helpers, guys that were over there, 163. Is that less, 100 or less? No, it isn't. Okay, so go on to another table. Oh, you had this one? So you're right then, Lindsay. Very nice. Nice. Okay, now go to another table.
I did 10. That's it. Those are 2 extra. What number is this one?
10, 20, 30, 40, 50.
Could you guys show me how you counted this one? I'd love to see. How did you count it?
We counted the little small ones and then the big ones.
So these are 10s too, right? Okay. And are these the ones that are left separate?
Yeah.
So count them for me. Let me just see.
20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120,
162. How did you estimate this one? Did you estimate it? Where did you estimate it at?
What number is that? What number is
So you did it right. So 162. Very nice.
I've already given you the clue to many of these questions, but I really want us to think about specific examples. So the first question is, what could you assess regarding children's understanding in this video clip? Think about the children you saw in the video clip. There were some children who were very much able to figure out, as they estimated, whether it be more than 100 or less than 100 or what kind of range of answers. But more importantly, I watched the children during this section where they had to quickly look at the answers. Did you listen to some children, as I did, that said 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and they weren't quite sure what to do with those extra ones, or they maybe counted the tens incorrectly? There were a few of those, but most children could count on the quick look. They were able to identify what it would be. Where I found most of the information that I was really trying to assess was when they were recording their answers. I was able to use their work products, the sheets that they used to collect the data, when they wrote down their numerals. I found some children were writing numerals that had 4 digits in them. So instead of writing, like my example was 108 as 108, they were writing 1008, which of course is 1008. That gave me an idea that they had difficulty writing and recording those numerals. The other thing I found out, as I looked at their work products and assessed those, and you didn't see those, so that would be difficult, but I was able to see if they could identify where the numbers they wrote down fit within those ranges. Most children were able to do that correctly, but many of them, and by many I mean more than I had expected, about 10 out of the class of 25, about 10 of them were not able to decide where a number fit within those ranges. I want them to be able to do that, and so that was something I was able to assess by watching them as they worked, as well as looking at their papers, at their end work product. And the second question talks about how could this assessment guide your planning and decision making? Well, the fact is that during instruction, I was able to see how children were able to, with fluency and with accuracy, count the exact number and record the number. I was also able to see and really observe their estimation powers. For instance, in so many cases where I would have estimated that it should be less than 100, there were several children who were actually estimated to be more than 200, which I consider to be something that they should have been able to see because many of the objects were very large. In other cases, I saw that they were, during the instruction, I watched them as they worked with a partner. And what I found is that they were letting their partner do all the counting rather than them doing the counting themselves. So I saw that during instruction I could assess. But importantly, I think, I could also use their papers where they recorded their answers as partial assessment. When I put both of those together, I feel like I got some good assessment, and it told me what to do more of. As I was talking to the teacher in this classroom, we both decided that most of their kids had some partial understanding of place value, but that they certainly needed to do more, and especially connecting the written form and where it goes on the number lines, so to speak, with the ranges, but that they needed to do more practice with that. This is an important concept, and this just gave me a little snapshot of where they were in number.